We already mentioned the history and how does the African Union work, but I think we're missing one of the most relevant topics about this union, this organization. That is the Agenda 2063. The Agenda 63 is an strategic framework of 50 years. It is the plan that they have to achieve the inclusive and sustainable development that they are trying to they are looking for, and this is supposed to culminate with an integrated and prosperous and peaceful Africa. And this project is supposed to be driven by its own citizens, and by the end in 2063, Africa is supposed to be is going to be supposedly a dynamic force in the global arena. It was adopted in 2015 and proposed in 2013 during the 50th anniversary, the celebration of the 50th anniversary of the Organization of the African Unity, and was the concrete manifestations, the manifestation of this Pan-African vision that they have. The Agenda 2063 of the African Union works with seven objectives, seven yes, like aspirations that reflect the collective ambitions that they have as a continent. The number one is a prosperous Africa based on inclusive growth and sustainable development. Number two is an integrated continent politically united based on the ideals of Pan Africanism, that the vision of Africa's Renaissance. Number three, an Africa of good governance, respect for human rights, justice, and the rule of law. Number four, a peaceful and secure Africa, just like that. Number five, an Africa with a strong cultural identity, common heritage, values, and ethics. Number six is an Africa whose development is people driven, relying on the potential of African people, especially its women and youth, and caring for children. And the last one is Africa as a strong, united, resilient, and influential global player and partner. So, the Agenda 2063 of the African Union works with these seven core objectives, aspirations, but they also have some flagships projects that are a measure that we can have for the success of this agenda. It is a plan of 50 years, but some of these projects are already in operation, so we can see that they are achieving their goals during these years. An example of them are for example, the African Continental Free Trade Area that is already in operation. This agreement was presented in 2019, and the free trade started in 2021. The secretariat was established in Ghana, and this agreement is facilitating the trade under new rules. So it is already in operation. Another one, single African air transport market. It is in progress currently. The project was launched in January 2018 and currently has over 35 countries. The legal framework is in place, and full liberalization is being implemented. Another one is the Pan African Virtual and University. It is already established and offering courses. So in this way, they are like offering the access to high education and training across Africa. Another one is the continental financial institutions. The establishment of this institution is in process. The headquarters had been named African Monetary Fund and the African Investment Bank. Um, Another one is the Pan African Payment and Settlement System that is also operational to facilitate intra African trade payments and support the already working African Continental Free Trade Area. On the other hand, we have some projects that are on progress but facing a lot of challenges, I would say. For example, the integrated high speed train network. This is a long term goal. And also, it is a goal that needs funding. And of course, it is a goal that requires more than a decade to be achieved. The vision, the plan is already in place, but well, it is facing these funding problems. Another one is the African passport and free movement of people. The African passport has been already launched, but the visa free travel for all African across all the 55 countries is not a reality, not yet. And with this, we have the resistance of some countries to ratify and to implement the protocol of free movement. So we are still far from this goal to be completely achieved. And another one that is experiencing problems to be achieved is silencing the guns by 2020. And this goal has already been extended to 2030. Eh, but even for that year, I see that it is complicated, the situation. Um, we have already the establishment of the African Peace and Security Architecture, I mean the AFSA, uh, that is fully in operations, is working, but we have the prevalence of conflicts in regions like Sahel and Eastern Africa. So silencing guns is a major priority. It is an important goal, but it is far from being fully achieved, even for 2030. 2063 agenda is obviously a long-term plan. It is a plan of 50 years, but the African countries saw that it was going to be easier for them to achieve their goals, dividing the 50 years in periods of 10 years. The first decade was until 2023, and the second period was launched in 2024, and it has been named the Decade of Acceleration, and they are focusing on key priorities to propel the continent towards the 2063 targets. And they are focusing especially in technology and communication. So we have to keep an eye on how they are working in the period of these 10 years until 2033. So it's going to be interesting the goals that they are achieving in this period. In general, we can see that the African Union is working in a good way. Africa as a continent is positioning itself as a main actor in the global scenario, in the global geopolitics. Um, it is being part of the international decision making. And this is highlighted by the role that Africa is playing in global forums. For example, in 2023, the African Union was included, became a permanent member of the G20, now the G21. So it is perhaps the most significant recent development that the African Union has made, because it demonstrates that Africa is not longer an object that relevant countries are talking about. Now, Africa is in the table of negotiations. And why this is important? Because we are talking about 1.3 billion people that in some way are being represented. Of course, we can have problems of who is representing, which countries are being neglected, but I mean, we are talking about 55 countries. Being in the G21 is better than nothing. And this inclusion also helps to the Agenda 2063, because it can help, for example, the African Continental Free Trade Area in terms of economics, or address the vulnerability that they have in terms of funding, or to establish their multilateral financial institutions. So it is a good achievement. Finally, Africa, through the African Union, is having a greater influence in global decision making. With this inclusion in the G20, this is only the beginning, and it is a good step. For example, the African Union is asking the United Nations Security Council for the inclusion of at least two permanent African seats to expand the United Nations Security Council. And their argument is that mainly the population that they have. We're talking about, again, 1.3 billion people. And another great reason for the inclusion of at least two permanent seats in the United Nations Security Council is that some of the projects and some of the concerns of the United Nations Security Council involves Africa. So this justifies the representation. It's like, you're talking about me, I'm your concern, I have the right and I have the relevance to be part of the negotiations, to be part of the decision that you are making about me. Uh, Also, in terms of multilateral and financial institutions, for example, the African Union is asking to reform the bodies of the IMF and the World Bank to ensure that the African development needs for financial stability are be are going to be addressed. So they need to be included in these kind of institutions also. Also, having a higher representation in the global scenario is good for Africa, because they are having like a relation with the main countries, the powerful countries. For example, China, the European Union, the United States, Russia. For example, with China, they are having summits and conference with the China Africa Cooperation, and these summits and conferences sometimes are hosted in China, sometimes in an African country, and the objective is to I mean, China has been the largest trading partner for Africa over the last years. So the objective is to invest in infrastructure and trade, finance. For example, with this project that I was talking about, the network of trains, China is investing in this project, but also in technology and energy. Another important relation is the European Union African Union relation. Well, with the joint Africa European Union strategy, they are having periodic summits. The last of them was in 2022, and they are trying to move from a model of a donor recipient to a model of equals, of a equals partnership. So um, they are investing in cooperation in terms of security, peace operations, a green transition, and of course we have problems with this because African countries say that they have like a Eurocentric approach. Of course, is the European Union. They are trying to get a benefit from these um, agreements, and we are going to have asymmetries, of course. But we are not talking about a European Union and just Namibia or just Zimbabwe. We are talking about the African Union as a continent. So, if they achieve agreements, it is going to be good for the support of the strategies of the Agenda 2063. Obviously, in the terms of the African Union, that I think that is the side um, of this negotiation that is in a disadvantage. Another relation is the USA and African Union. With Joe Biden, we had another situation. The interest and the areas that they were working were democracy, of course, trade, investment, and health. But with the current administration in the U.S., health, I think that is not a concern. But in general, having a better representation in the global scenario, the African countries are in a better position to claim for mutual respect and for shared interests. So, finally, with Russia, we have also an important relation with Africa. Russia is offering mainly military and security support, frequently through private military companies. So, African countries need to be careful with how they manage this situation, but maybe for them it's better to have Russian private companies um, fighting than the US bringing peace and democracy. So they have to evaluate this situation also. But again, they are in a better position to establish agreement and to claim for an equal relation. We need to mention that there are challenges for the African Union. First, institutional and financial challenges. The African Union still have a high dependency in terms of funding, especially from the European Union when it comes to operations of peace and security. They are working to shift from this model from donor and recipient to a equal partnership. But even if they achieve this, the dependency is still there. And another institutional challenge that they have is the overlap in mandates. they need a deeper level of harmonization between the actions of the African Union. As we saw, there are different regional economic communities, but sometimes the efforts are duplicated. And far from contributing to achieve the goal faster or easier, it only creates like confusion. So they can be over addressing resources in an action that is not going to be achieved easier. So that's a problem. About operational and security challenges, they have some ongoing conflicts in some countries. So this kind of problems only create instability and threats to the to these organizations. So it is also a challenge. It is different if we think in the European Union trying to achieve a goal, and the African Union, because not of not even considering economical problems, but war problems. That's a thing. And finally, we have the political and normative challenges. Um, with this, it is difficult to have 55 countries together in a single organization. That is kind of difficult because some states could think that they are giving away a lot of their sovereignty to be to fit in the agreements of an organization, and maybe they think that they are not having enough benefits. About politics, we have the resurgence of coups, and we have still instability in Mali, Burkina Faso, Guinea, and finally, the lack of political will. Some countries refuse to accept the free mobility agreements, um, because again, 1.3 billion people, 55 countries working together. They are different in languages, they are different in culture, they are different in ideologies. They were colonized by different countries, and they took different paths. So obviously, is going to exist lack of will from the political leaders, but maybe also from the population, because yes, at the end of the day, they have to consider if it is better for them to be in this organization that is going to provide them with better opportunities in terms of security, in terms of politics, in terms of in economical terms, or just to be isolated. I don't think so, but still, they have to deal with this situation, and we still have 40 years maybe for to achieve the goals. So as I was saying, we have to keep an eye on how they are working in these 10 years, in this second decade, to achieve the small targets, and how they work. With this, we are finishing this video. I hope you enjoyed, I hope you understood the topic, and let me know what do you think about this topic. So thank you, bye bye.